Mhm. Okay, shall we begin? Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the COST webinar named Bridging Divides, Interreligious Dialogue and Migration in Austria, Croatia and Serbia. I'm Djordje Stojanović. I'm PhD candidate at the University of Belgrade, and I will be your host today. So the main goal of today's webinar is to spotlight how faith-based organizations and local actors work to ground the bridge divides, facilitate dialogue, and support migrant inclusion. We will focus both on the positive transformative role that they played, but also we will focus on obstacles they faced on the field. We will, as the title itself has suggested, we will represent the cases of Austria, Croatia, and Serbia. And unlike Austria, who has a long tradition of integration of interreligious dialogue in both state and civil society frameworks, Croatia and Serbia don't have that tradition, and it exists often as a part of humanitarian responses. So this webinar will consist of 3 parts. In the first part, there will be the academic presentation, where the researchers will present their findings. In the second part, there will be organization practice sharing. And finally, in the third part, our guests will have, or other participants will have the possibility to ask questions. And I would like to ask you to ask questions in Q&A using Q&A option. And in case it's not possible, use chat to ask questions, and they will be answered at the end of this webinar. So before we begin, and before I give floor to our academic speakers, I would like to say I would like to introduce a few rules. First of all, I would like to ask you to mute your mic while somebody is speaking, because there might be technical problems with echoes. Second, as I mentioned, you can ask our questions in Q&A or using chat. And finally, I would like to ask you to have polite and respectful interaction with each other. So with no further ado, I would start with the first presentation. It's of our academic researchers. And our first speaker is Professor Dr. Siniša Zrinščak from the University of Zagreb in Croatia. He's the professor and head of the chair of sociology at the Faculty of Law, University of Zagreb. His research focuses on religious and social policy changes in post-communist societies, state-church relations, and religion and human rights. He has held key roles in international scholarly association, including president of the International Study of Religion in Eastern and Central Europe Association, and general secretary of the International Society for Sociology of Religion. He has published extensively with 100 papers in peer-reviewed journals and books. So, Professor Zrinščak, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Well, thank you very much all. What I will present, and I think what is really important, is just to briefly describe the social context, because the social context is important. Although we usually think we know this context, but it's also very much important to constantly remind on our social framework in order to understand what is going on, what is possible, and what is not possible. So I hope I will be brief, but I will just briefly present 3 points. The first is the history of interreligious dialogue in Croatia. The second is contemporary religious structure together with some social facts. And finally, migration patterns and migration processes in Croatia. These 3 aspects, these 3 points are connected with the basic question, which I will not answer, but I think it's very much important, is what is the capacity of each society, in my case, Croatian society, to change and to learn from the foreign experience. I think this is really very important, and unfortunately, there is not much capacity. But let's start with the history. The history of interreligious dialogue is heavily constrained by the fact that Croatia was a part of the communist Yugoslavia after the Second World War, and basically we don't have any history or prominent history of the interreligious dialogue, because it was the system in which religion was very much oppressed, or we can say that religions were not part of the public sphere and the public activities. They were very much involved in the private life of many citizens, but not in the public. So there were it was not public actor as such. However, what we had is a kind of so-called Christian Marxist dialogue, which was promoted by some political actors. It was also a part of the so-called Vatican Eastern policy in order to, overcome hostilities with the regimes, particularly communist regimes in Central and Eastern Europe. So there was a kind of dialogue developed, but it was mainly dialogue among intellectuals, not really having any real impact in society. In terms of the different religions between themselves, there was some contact, of course, because they were all in the same position, or almost in the same position, but it was very important, if some religions have majority status and some other minority, so it's not the same position, but okay. Let's say they were all of them oppressed by the communist rule, so there was some contact, but not extensive dialogue. So there is no history of dialogue. And the important thing is that the democracy, I think democracy is very much important social circumstances in order to foster dialogue between those who are different. We didn't have such conditions. What happened after the fall down of communism and our changes to democratic society changed these basic features about the history of interreligious dialogue? Unfortunately, not much. First, the transition to democracy has been still complicated, and it's a slow democratic process, of course. With the change of government, nothing happened automatically, so there is no automatically switch to change to new circumstances. Another factor is that we have a very turbulent transition marked by the war, dissolution of Yugoslavia, war, and making the independent state in the war circumstances. And what is also very much important is that the religion themselves were very much preoccupied with their social status, not with all other social circumstances. So they mainly try to secure their social position. And another thing, which is also very important in that relation, is that Croatia actually has become much more homogeneous society in terms of ethnic and religious structure. So we are mainly Catholic society with more than 80% of the Catholic, 3.3% of the Orthodox, according to the last census, 1.3% of the Muslims, and some other religions which are less than 1%. So very much homogenization, a homogeneous process in the terms of religious and ethnic structure, and the wish of the religions to secure its position. It's mainly connected with the Catholic Church, which got the agreement with the Holy See, but also with other agreements which also have agreement with the government, and I would say rather solid social position. So again, these all circumstances didn't result in any kind of structured dialogue, nothing actually. Of course, there are contacts between the religions, particularly with the Serbian Orthodox Church in relation to the history and wars and tensions during the wars. Of course, there are contacts with the Muslim community, and usually Muslim community, Eastern community in Croatia said they are very satisfied with their social status. But I would say there is no extensive dialogue among religions. There are some things going on at the local level, at the regional level, but that is very much connected with the local actors and the local circumstances. So nothing structured at the state level. So do we need interreligious dialogue? Yes, we do need. Why? Because of the migration process. So there is social circumstances changed dramatically in the last 10 years. First, starting from the Syrian war and the refugees coming mainly through the so-called Balkan route, from Serbia, Croatia, Balkan countries, Macedonia, Serbia, Croatia, going mainly to the Western European countries, but also some other refugees and asylum claimers and so on. So there was extensive, changes. However, and after that, there was constantly migrants who tried to enter for different reasons, who tried to enter Croatia, sometimes in the legal way, sometimes it's not legal way. But if we are talking about non-legal way, we also have to mention the authorities, which sometimes or often, I'm not sure how to claim it, prevent those who want to, for example, ask for the asylum status. They prevent them to come to the Croatia. So in that way, you know, what is legal, what is illegal, it's very much a matter of discussion. The main attitude of the society is they don't want to stay with us and we don't want them. However, this is not the full story, of course. However, this is not the full story. And the situation completely changed in last 5-6 years, because in last 4 or 5 years, I'm not sure, but something like that, Croatia dramatically changed its labor market rules. So it fully opened labor market for immigrants from everywhere. So in just a few years, we were usually, traditionally, historically, immigrant society. We became fully immigrant society with tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands immigrants who came. Sometimes some of them passed through the territory, some of them stayed. You know, we don't have exact numbers, but there are now many immigrants who come here for the work, from many Asian countries, India, Nepal, Philippines, Cambodia, and some other countries, also some post-Soviet countries. So there is huge variety, and there are huge problems. There are huge problems in terms of the social distance, in terms of the hostility, in terms of the work exploitation, in terms of their living and work experiences and, you know, standards. And the main problem is that we don't talk about them. We don't talk about them in society in general. Of course, there are some debates, you know, you can read something from the papers, but nothing, I would say, you know, in a concentrated way, nothing systematically. So the problem is that we witnesses that in many Western European countries, and we just don't want to learn from other experiences. The main, I would say, unofficially slogan, but even some officials say that they're just here temporarily, they're just here for work, there is no need for any kind of integration, they don't want to integrate, we will have them for a few years and that's it. So it's a huge variety, it's a huge number of different cases, huge number of different, I would say, life experiences and different situations. So migrants, asylum seekers, work migrants, and so on, with huge social problems and with huge social costs in the future. Also, with them, there are religions, some coming. We at the moment don't know nothing about that, about their religions, about their wish. We know something, little bit something, but nothing, you know, it's completely not explored. So what we can see is that, of course, many of them are here now for a few years, or of course they will stay, and some family members will come, and the organization of some existing religions like Islam community, but also some new like Hinduism or Sikhism or, you know, Buddhism. So this type of organization, religious organization, will just, you know, pop up in a few months or a few years. And we are at the moment completely not ready for them. So from the experience of the few non-governmental organizations who are working in the field, and we will hear now from our colleague Neira very soon, not only there are huge problems, but there is a huge need for cultural and religious understanding. So this huge need is just not seen or visible in the society. But, you know, the concrete work, you know, we can say from the general position, we can say, you know, from the academic position, but from the concrete work, we can see how general cultural understanding, and which includes religious understanding of religious difference, of religious rights and religious position, is just crucial for what is going on in today's society. So this is the main frame. I think I'm done with my time, right?
Yeah, right on time. So thank you, Siniša, for your presentation. It was really interesting to hear about the both historical and contemporary context of Croatia. And our next speaker is Dr. Deniz Coşan Eke. She from University of Vienna in Austria. She's a postdoctoral researcher in Alevi Theological Studies at the University of Vienna. She holds a PhD in social and cultural anthropology from a university in Munich and has conducted research at universities in Denmark, United Kingdom, and Germany. Her work focuses on transnational migration, religious groups, and interreligious dialogue. She is the author of several publications and co-leads a working group on gender, age, and religious diversity within EU-funded COREnet project. So, Deniz, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Siniša's good framework about Croatia. I would like to also continue the framework about the migration and interreligious dialogue in Austria. Migration is an important parameter of growth of Austria because of declining birth rates and an aging population. Historically, it can be argued that the current Austrian immigration policies has been changed by 4 phases of immigrants. The first one is the labor migration in the 1960s, and then the second one, the shift from labor migration to family migration in 1970s, and then after then, as Siniša also explained, the wars in former Yugoslavia in the late 1960s and the early 1990s, and the last period of the Austrian migration system from 1993 to 2050 with Austrians' accession to the European Union. Immigration and immigration integration have become an important topic of discussion, occurring more frequently in current policies and the media from the 1990s onward. Until the 1980s, the Minister of Social Affairs regulated migration policy related to labor market. However, as the resident immigrant population increased in the period from 1987 to 1994, and after the larger influence of refugees, immigration in Austria was seen as an internal security issue, and the Minister of the Interior has started to take responsibility on immigration regulations in Austria. Consequently, following the fact that in 2050, Austria was the 40th largest receiver of asylum seekers in the European Union, that has brought the religion of the immigrants to the fore in public and, of course, the political narratives. Until the 2000s, most immigrants to Austria came from predominantly Christian countries, especially Germany and Eastern European countries. Between 2011 and 2015, migration patterns in Austria shifted due to the violent conflicts in the Middle East countries. As a result, a significant number of immigrants to Austria began to arrive from Muslim-majority countries, such as Syria and Afghanistan. With these increased migration contexts, while immigrants have continued to cultural and religious diversity, increasing immigration has led some groups to perceive them as a threat. In response, religious organizations and civil society initiatives have developed activities that recognize religious diversity and promote dialogue and mutual understanding between different faith communities in Austria. In this short presentation, I would like to highlight some local activities that have the potential to separate further on a national scale. Then our distinguished guest, Mabrika Rayachki, will share with us some example of the current interreligious dialogue in schools in Austria. In Austria, there are religious councils in the federal states where all churches, religious and denominational communities are officially represented. Brochures contain basic information, and all churches, religious communities, and denominations are produced specifically for the federal states. For example, the Religious Consolidated Council of Upper Austria provides information about legally recognized churches, religious and denominational communities in 4 brochures on faith and religion in Austria. And the brochures are aimed at teachers in school or kindergarten or after-school care centers, and as well as basic information. They answer questions that children and young people encounter in everyday life, such as the religious holiday and tradition, stages of the religious life, etc. And then the guidelines for the assessment of the religious needs in hospitals and care facilities deal with the handling of different religious cultures in the patient and care sector, different religious rules and aspects of practical pastoral care. And also they provide information on the social services of churches and religious communities to strengthen interreligious relations. Beyond these initiatives, universities, religious organizations, and NGOs play a really important role in fostering interreligious dialogue in Austria. The activities of interreligious dialogue can be followed by the University of Vienna, which undertook a project to compile a detailed list of initiatives and studies on interreligious dialogue in Austria. Professor Wolfram Reis have classified the basic structure of interreligious dialogue under 4 subheadings: initiative of institution for interreligious dialogue, initiatives of NGOs and civil society, initiative of religious communities, denominations, and confession for interreligious dialogue in Austria. However, it is important to stress that Christian welfare organization Caritas and Diakoni in Austria have undertaken many aid and voluntary work for immigrants and integration work. In 2050, I can give one example. Caritas and Diakoni carried out about 20% of all integration projects funded by the Ministry for Integration in Austria. Other notable initiatives include, for example, Flut nach Vorn. This organized the leisure activities for refugee and young adults in sport, arts, and education, or Kama. Kama is the offering courses taught by asylum seekers, migrants, and persons grants asylum, or projects, School for All, providing education for young refugees and children. Despite these effects, it is crucial to recognize that religious and migrant organizations primarily focus on social services rather than explicitly on interreligious dialogue. This is also important to underline these points. And if you look at the role of the interfaith dialogues in Austria's integration policies, I think one of the important points to emphasize is Austria introduced the National Action Plan on Integration in 2010, involving religious actors from Christian, Jewish, and Islamic communities in efforts to promote intercultural and interreligious dialogue in Austria. However, I can say that platforms for interreligious dialogues have yet to become a permanent element of Austria's integration or religious practices. In summary, I can say that Austria is ethnically and religiously diverse as well as highly secularized. Consequently, interreligious dialogue is supported by numerous institutional, religious, and civil society initiatives at the local or state level, particularly response to migration-related religious diversity. given this complexity, providing a detailed overview of the interreligious dialogue in Austria within this short presentation is difficult for me. However, ongoing effort aim to establish interreligious dialogue as a sustainable and integral part of Austrians' migration and integration policies. And I think that these initiatives have contributed to fostering positive narratives around migration and religious diversity, helping to expand the reach and impact of the interreligious dialogue in the country. Thank you very much. I think that my time is finished, and thank you very much for your interest and attention.
Well, thank you, Deniz, and thank you for highlighting the current activities that are happening in Austria. And our next speaker is Dr. Aleksandra Djurić Milovanović. She's a principal researcher at the Institute for Balkan Studies of Serbian Academy of Arts and Sciences in Serbia. She's also a Network for Dialogue coordinator at International Dialogue Center COST. She earned her PhD in ethnology and anthropology at the University of Belgrade in 2012. And her main research focus is anthropology of religion, religious minorities, migration studies, and interreligious dialogue. So, Aleksandra, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Djordje. Please mute yourself because we are sitting in the same space. I am really grateful for this opportunity to speak at the COST webinar together with my two actually co-authors of the paper. We forgot to mention of the paper that we work together. I think this is one of the quite unique contributions to the study of interreligious dialogue because we are doing comparative analysis and comparative study between Croatia, Serbia, and Austria with the examples from the grassroots initiatives. Some of them we will hear also from our guests today. And I'm really grateful to Siniša because, of course, he provided a great framework for the historical contextualization on the interreligious dialogue status in former Yugoslavia. Of course, Croatia and Serbia shared the same status, and interreligious dialogue and the history of interreligious dialogue really didn't exist in the institutional framework. However, after the fall of communism and after the changes that were introduced by new legal frameworks that were in place, we have now in Serbia, according to the law from 2006, that is still valid, we have 7 traditional churches and religious communities, and we have so-called number of confessional communities, mostly religious minorities of Protestant evangelical origin or background, that are represented with very, very numerical small communities, but still very active. And one of the main areas of my research, including the research for this contribution, is also to showcase that minority religious communities can be actively supporting interreligious dialogue and can be one of the links that are very much and very often neglected when we speak about interreligious dialogue. And predominantly traditional churches and religious communities on this kind of nominal level, they do have encounters which enable some kind of interaction, mostly on the level of religious leaders. However, some, I would say, more significant interreligious dialogue efforts in Serbia are still very, very much missing. In that context, of course, Austria is a bit different, and Deniz explained that of course it is not the same historical and contemporary legacy. And when it comes to migration, of course, when we speak about the country that was also shaped by history of emigration, but also internal migration, Serbia is one of the countries that that has very rich history in that area, and also very, I would say, in-depth experience when it comes also to internally displaced people, when it comes to the whole history about refugees, unfortunately, from our own conflicts that existed in this space, and that also had a huge effect when it comes to the shift in population and also the relationship when it comes to religious communities towards them. And when it comes to the contemporary migration and refugees and migrants in the context of, as also Siniša mentioned, from the establishment of the Balkan route onwards, we also need to say that Serbia was a key transit country, and increasingly also it became a forced destination country for many refugees who were also waiting for a number of months and even years in different reception centers in Serbia, waiting for their legal documentation or asylum to other European countries. Of course, Serbia as a non-EU country doesn't seem as a destination country for many of those who are seeking to reach European Union, especially Germany and Austria. However, in recent years, and also what Siniša mentioned, we also witnessed a number of those migrants who are coming to work in Serbia from Asian countries. And we are also witnessing the increased number when it comes to labor migration, of this diversification when it comes to especially their ethnic but also religious background. And one of the key things that we also need to underline here is that we cannot observe both refugee and migrant category as a monoconfessional, predominantly Muslim. And this narrative is also very much present in media, but also in other discourses about this monoconfessional identity of refugees and migrants. We also need to understand that there is a number of identities that also the refugees and migrants are carrying with them. And among them, we also have evangelicals. And today with us is also Pastor Samuel Petrovsky, who will share his experience about his own community, where he received a number of those who were evangelical Christians among refugees coming to Belgrade. One of the main theses of contribution when it comes to Serbia and my part of research was also to emphasize how faith-based organizations basically had a crucial role, critical role, first in humanitarian responses from 2015 onwards, but later on also in response to social inclusion aspects, predominantly when it comes to education, because a number of refugee children who were living for a couple of months and even years in refugee camps were allowed to be part of state public schools, and how faith-based organizations were really critical in bridging this gap between, supporting the system when it comes to refugee camps and Commissariat for Refugees and Migrants, who is the main legal institutional government institution working on this aspect, and what was their role. So we are also putting emphasis here that not only civil society organizations were key in providing humanitarian and social inclusion support, including legal support, but also a number of faith-based organizations were very active in this field. And I am giving examples also of Islamic community of Serbia as an example of interreligious dialogue in practice, who in several years, they organized a celebration in front of the Bayrakli Mosque in Serbia for Ramadan, for Eid. We are now in Eid celebration, so it is good to mention that there was a public Eid celebration in the streets of Belgrade, where Bayrakli Mosque was a host, inviting all other faith-based organizations, religious leaders to join this public activity. One Eid was dedicated to refugees and migrants a few years ago, and it was also sharing of the food for refugees and migrants that were at that time living very close to the old bus station in Belgrade, where we know that a number of refugees were living literally on the street or in the before the establishment of the camp system that was in place a bit later. Another example that I will give, Djordje will give me a sign with his hand when I am done with my time, is the work of Jesuit Refugee Service. I am purposely mentioning religious communities that are not, I would say, they are not in the position of minority, but in a way they are, because both Islamic community and a Catholic Church in the predominantly Orthodox context do present in a way religious minorities or communities that are of course, in numerically much weaker than the Serbian Orthodox Church. I also need to mention that Serbian Orthodox Church, through its organization Čovekoljublje or philanthropy, has been also working amazing job when it comes to different projects across Serbia, especially in schools. But I think those examples are very, also, we speak a lot about these examples, and maybe we neglect some others that remain a bit silenced. And this is where I think our work as researchers also has a value, because we are revealing in a way also those examples and the narratives that other, especially minority groups, minority religious groups and minority faith-based actors are providing. So one of the main actors is also GRS, or Jesuit Refugee Service, and their work with unaccompanied minors. They had for years a safe house for children that were unaccompanied without their parents. And I will just add ADRA as one of the key players, also known in the whole context of ex-Yugoslavia. ADRA had a very prominent role also after 1991's wars and refugees from different parts of Yugoslavia. But also nowadays, ADRA is very much active. It is Adventist Relief Agency, another minority Protestant community that has been working on a community level on social integration projects, establishing one community house in the suburb of Belgrade with number of activities for refugees and migrants. So in a way, by showing these examples with a very limited time we have, we wanted to reinforce again that faith-based communities and faith-based organizations have a critical role in initiating indirectly interfaith dialogue, because they're all very different in their own religious background. They're providing humanitarian and social integration aid and support to refugees and migrants who are also very diverse in their religious and ethnic background, and maybe not even aware, but intercultural and interreligious communication and dialogue is already in place. It is maybe not in a formalized way, maybe a bit less formal, but it is existing, and we are here to also provide insights about their existence and to showcase that even without institutional framework, dialogue is naturally happening. And we will hopefully reinforce this narrative of dialogue and support this framework even further beyond grassroots initiatives. And this is, I think, where our research and contribution can have a significant role. Thank you, and I'm sorry for taking a bit more time.
Thank you, Aleksandra, for emphasizing the context of Serbia, which is very specific because, like majority of ex-EU countries, we have that ethno-confessional moment. So it was important to emphasize both role of traditional and minority churches. And also thank you for emphasizing that it's important not to view migrants as monoconfessional and not to reduce their identity only to their faith, but view it as not nuanced as it is. So with your presentation, we are finishing the first part of this webinar, and we are moving toward the second part, where we will present, where organizational practice sharing will be presented. And the first speaker is Ms. Neira Kadić-Meškić. She is a CEO of Center for the Cultural Dialogue and associate at the Islamic community in Croatia. She finished the School of Economics and Business at the University of Sarajevo and has 15 years of experience as a program and campaign leader in a field of human rights, minority rights, interfaith and interreligious dialogue, youth and gender equality, and the political and implementational level. And she is also Network for Dialogue member of COST. So Neira, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Djordje. And actually, as you heard, I'm coming from Croatia, and basically I will try to speak from the practice of the work of NGO sector or faith-based organization, but also with observation of Islamic community in Croatia regarding to today's topic. So I guess with Siniša's part and mine part, I think it will be much clearer what's happening with interreligious dialogue in topic of migration in Croatia. So actually, I'm running an NGO. So this NGO is non-profit and non-governmental organization. The name of the NGO is Center for Cultural Dialogue. And I think from the name of the center, it's obvious that we use culture of dialogue or dialogue actually as a tool in promoting more inclusive societies. We are based in Croatia and we mostly work in Croatia, but through the cooperation with other countries, joint EU projects, but also through the networks such as Network for Dialogue, we do cooperate also with other countries and in region, but also in countries that are not so close to this region. I mean, other countries in Europe. What I can share is that we were established in 2015, and at that time, our goal actually was we were working on interreligious and intercultural encounters, mostly with youth. And our goal somehow was actually to, we work on intra-religious dialogue and interreligious dialogue. So among interreligious dialogue, we mostly work with youth Muslims in a way that we wanted to prevent any kind of extreme understanding of religion, and we were doing that together with Islamic community in Croatia, and also we did interreligious dialogue sessions together with other religions in Croatia, but mostly with youth. That was our goal, and actually the vision was actually how to strengthen more intercultural, interreligious Croatian society in a way that all its citizens, regardless of their different identities, including gender, religion, ethnicity, nationality, can fully participate in decision-making processes and in Croatian society in general. But somehow in that 2015-2016, the huge migration wave, not the crisis, happened to Europe. So people were coming through Balkan route, actually mostly crossing to Croatia as a transit country. Some of them did stay, but if we are talking about numbers, a lot of them actually just crossed Croatia. And we also, after that, I mean, Croatia participated in this this program where we resettlement program where we had refugees from Syria coming, families coming to Croatia that wanted actually to stay and live in Croatia. And that's when we figure out that a lot of refugees that were coming to Croatia actually were going to Islamic community in Croatia. So they were in different reception centers in Croatia. I mean, in Zagreb mostly, in Porin or Kutina. But every time that they had time, they went to Islamic community in Croatia. And when we did research about it, why they are, sorry for this, Mark. The answer was actually that they had trust in a religious institution, and that was a place where they can get additional support. And then when we talked to Islamic community in Croatia, they actually didn't have huge capacities to support these processes. So that was then we realized that interreligious dialogue has a huge capacity in helping the integration and inclusion of these people into Croatian society. We started a program with Islamic community in Croatia because a lot of them were actually Muslims at that point. So I'm talking about people who gained international protection, so asylum or subsidiary protection into Croatian society. And then these huge efforts were also recognized by the state of Croatia. And we created one program with the Ministry of Interior Affairs, and it was very much connected with the integration and inclusion. So by the law of international protection in Croatia, Croatia as a country has this obligation actually to help them to integrate in Croatian society, especially in these first 3 years when they get the asylum status. And they saw that actually working with them directly was something that wasn't really functioning. A lot of them actually left Croatia in very short period of time. So they also realized that using the faith-based organizations, civil society organization, together with the religious community was a way how to actually show them that the life in Croatia is possible and they can really participate in the society. And that's when we started together with Ministry of Interior Affairs, the project New Neighbors. We call it New Neighbors because I think it's very obvious. And I always say that it's not only that they need to integrate and adapt a new society, it's also the hosting society that needs also to adopt, to learn about people who are coming, new cultures, new religions maybe, or even if they're not new religions, such as, for example, Muslims, maybe they have some differences in this traditional or activities, let's say it like that. So I think that from this beginning of cooperation with the state, but also cooperation with international organizations such as UNICEF, UNHCR, but also cooperation with civil society organizations and religious communities, we could get this effect of synergetic activities where we all the actors in this process actually actively work on this process. But I must say that mostly we work with people who have been granted with international protection. That's also really important because this is not the only group of refugees and migrants that we have in Croatia. As Siniša also mentioned, lately we have a lot of people who are coming to Croatia for work permits. I think in 2024 it was like 200,000 approved work permits for Croatia, and that is a huge number of people with different identities coming to Croatia, coming to mostly homogeneous society, I would say. And the issue of this is that we don't have adequate policies or valid policies, migration policies or action plans for integration and inclusion of these people in Croatian society. And that's something that's missing from this strategic level. That's the reason why Center for Cultural Dialogue is also working on this advocacy level. And we did changes, for example, of law for international protection, but still this migration policy is missing. That's something that we are working on. Also on an action plan that the last was valid to 2017 or 18, something like that. So years ago it expired. I must say that through our experience in using interreligious and cultural dialogue, the most successful activities were the ones that we call intercultural encounters. So this is the place and time where locals, so Croats, mostly Catholics, but also the others, come to meet new neighbors who came from different countries, so meaning refugees and migrants. And we usually, when we create these events, we notice that we need to gather with food, because food is usually used as a bridge towards serious talks and interreligious dialogue. So we start talking about the food and how something is prepared, what is specific for this and that country. And then we start talking about differences and similarities in our religions and our cultures. But it's not, of course, that we always use this religious holidays to do that. So we do celebrate Christmas together. We celebrate Eids together. We mark Ramadan. We create joint iftars, and these are the events where we work invite locals and new neighbors, but also we call decision makers to participate in this process. And so far, we had really successful examples of that. And I will also mention one more example. At the moment, we are starting one project with its program with UNICEF. So UNICEF is starting a program with Ministry of Social Care in Croatia, where they want to strengthen the foster care of unaccompanied minors that are coming to Croatia in a way that they want to help of religious communities through interreligious dialogue to raise the number of families who will provide foster care. So we are starting with this. So I will tell you more, I guess, in years that are coming. But the goal is actually that through interreligious dialogue, we break this prejudice and stereotypes that exist about people and religions that they belong to when they come to Croatia. So mostly, I think I'm with my time. I'm fine, or it's fine. So I guess I will just agree with Siniša in one part that I think we do not do it enough. We don't practice interreligious enough. So we have activities and we have a will to do it, but still a lot of work is missing, especially comparing to the numbers of foreigners that we have at the moment in Croatia. So I think there is a lot of things to do, but I guess we are on a good path. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for sharing us the experiences of Islamic Center in Croatia. Now, our next speaker is Ms. Mabruka Rajaci. She works as Islamic School Inspector in Austria. She is actively involved in promoting educational practices that reflect the values of inclusion, tolerance, and intercultural understanding. Her work supports the integration of Islamic education within Austria's pluralistic school system, with an emphasis on empowering students and building bridges across communities. And she is as well a Network for Dialogue COST member. So, Mabruka, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for this invitation. Let me start with the aim of the Islamic religious teaching in Austria. And this is why interreligious dialogue is very important. The first aim is to enable children and adolescents to have an authentic and reliable knowledge about their own religion, and so that they have more spiritual orientation, and so not extreme knowledge of their religion, but a moderate one which is suitable to the pluralistic environment in Austria. The second aim, which is very important for our webinar today, is to build up an attitude of receptiveness and openness for other cultures and religions, and taking into consideration the pluralistic society in which we are living. And to achieve these goals, we train Islamic religious teachers both as teachers, but also as bridge builder in schools, because religious teachers they know about their religion, about the narratives in the community, and about the students. And also they know the system in the Austrian society. So this is the introduction how interreligious dialogue is very important for the education. But we have some challenges we are facing today in the Austrian schools, which are very important to mention, so that we will see how we can manage to overcome them. I will just mention 3 challenges, which is, one challenge is we have an unhealthy development in Austria in the sense that we have, on the one hand, an increase of polarization in the society, and on the other hand, we have an increase of victimization. So both development are not so healthy for the society. And when these development goes to schools, then it makes it more difficult to have these interreligious and intercultural dialogue. The second development which we have now in Austrian schools is that the number of students choosing to attend Catholic or the evangelic classes are decreasing. And the number of Muslim students choosing to attend Islamic religious teaching is increasingly. And this makes something, I don't know how to express it, but it's not the way Austria is used to be. So it comes some, it brings with it some modification in schools, some structural and administrative things which are not so good for the whole mood in schools and in the society. And the third challenge is how to establish a balance between security matters and but without putting all Muslim children under general suspicion. And this is our very hard things, and that's why we do need interreligious, intercultural dialogues so that we can deal with these challenges on the right way. Because these the religious teacher are usually the teacher in schools who has much time to work on that, because the other teachers, methods or literature or so, they have their curricula and they want to do it, but the religious teachers are somehow a little bit free. So we try to make many projects in that sense so that we cope with these challenges. One of the the famous project is the World Religions Week. Many schools encourage these World Religious Week, during which students learn in different workshops about the different religions and visit their places of worship. And at the end of this week, they celebrate the diversity with food, with performances, with leaders. And this is a very good tradition in Austrian schools, as long as the religious teachers all together want to work together and to make it. The other thing is that we have the flow of refugee on the 2015-16 have some increase these cooperation between all religious teachers, because they made many together many projects to because the refugees are coming, they don't have any ideas about how the system is working in Austria, and they behave as if they are in their own cities or countries, and the school they don't have any experience how to deal with them. And the religious teachers, Islamic, the Catholic, Alawi, and evangelists, have made many projects how to make it easier for the newcomers to integrate in the society, and how the Austrian teachers and headmasters have to deal with them in the right way. We are planning a peace march in the oldest city in Austria, in Krems, in which the high school students from all this region, it's a big city with many schools, and the high school students will walk from their schools together, everyone from his school or from her school, to the center of the city, singing peace songs, performing theater about peace and harmony. And so that it's it's an initiative of interreligious dialogue, but all schools are encouraging this performance and this march, and we want to also propagate it in other cities in Austria, because it's, as I said, the challenges are very big, and how do we say, the political mood in the city, in Austria in January, is not for interreligious interdialogue, but rather for polarization. And we try to do in schools to keep our schools inclusive but peaceful, and to face these challenges. There are many other projects where they have also, it's normal in Austria that all children celebrate Christmas, but also they celebrate not in all schools, but in some schools, Ramadan and Bayram. It depends how the headmaster is attitude to this subject. So this is what I am going to say now, and we will see how it comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabruka, for your presentation. It was really interesting to hear about challenges that you are facing and the role that religious education can have might have, better said, in secular societies. So we will move to our final speaker. Our final speaker is Mr. Samuel Petrovski. He is the pastor and director of the Evangelical Student Alliance in Serbia. He has been long engaged in interfaith initiatives, young leadership development, and social outreach. His work focuses on building trust and dialogue across religious lines, particularly among young people and student communities. In his community in Belgrade, which is International Christian Fellowship, they have a number of migrants, and he has been closely collaborating with several humanitarian organizations such as Bread of Life of the Baptist Church. And so, Samuel, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aleksandra, for inviting me. Thank you for all of you. I was afraid that Siniša left my presentation, but he's back. Yeah, listen, we are living in greetings from Belgrade, and we need to understand that we are living in an area of Balkan where there is a lot of migration happening in the last 100 years. Like, for example, I was saying my grandmother was a Greek migrant after the Second World War from northern Greece to Croatia. So in my family, I already had a family member who was a Greek migrant because she was a member of Communist Party, and Orthodox priest brought the Germans who killed her father and mother. She refuged into the Macedonia, then later to Croatia. My wife is from Sarajevo, Serb from Sarajevo, who also migrant as a refugee. She left her home at the age of 15 with her mother and 4 children, although father stayed as a Serb in the siege of Sarajevo. So helping migrants and refugees is in our blood, and it's in our practice. And I remember still when there was the first wave of migrants coming from Middle East, from the Afghanistan and Iran. A lot of people on the streets, you who are from Belgrade, you will remember that lot of people were coming on the street, on the train station, bus station, helping people, including my wife. After she finished her work as a doctor, she was next 3 hours from 5 to 8 being on the street and helping migrants and refugees coming. So there is a lot of already good practice and goodwill among people who want to help migrants. So we are trying to continue to educate our young people and other people in our churches and communities that even Jesus was a refugee as a small child. He was 2 years in Egypt. Yes, and we always trying to emphasize what Bible say about how we should help the neighbors and people who are different than us. So we are trying to emphasize that through the church, in our churches, in our communities, to teach importance of helping and loving others, like what the Good Samaritan story is teaching us. The neighbor is everybody who is in need. So that's the first thing. Second thing, we are at the moment in Belgrade, in Serbia, we have a lot of different groups who are at the like we have Cubans. We have Cuban migrants. So there are 3,000 Cubans in Belgrade. And we have a Cuban church. Like in Belgrade, we opened some churches for the people who came as political or refugees, migrants. We have a Cuban church of 40 Cubans who are meeting in Belgrade. We help them with the papers, then we have a Russian communities. In Novi Sad, we have 4 Russian churches, Russian-speaking churches. In Belgrade, we have one Russian community. It's called Acts of Love, where every Russian and Ukrainian person come in Belgrade. We have a people who are helping them practically, papers, registration, connect them with some families, how to find the flats and everything, because there's a lot of practical practical help is needed when they come. We have also church and services we did in migrant camps, in refugee camps. In Krnjača, I was preaching. I never had experience to preach in English and be translated in Farsi. So we are helping a lot of these camps in Šid, in Belgrade. And in some of this area, the people who are Protestants who run away from Afghanistan and Iran and other places, they wanted to have a church in their language. So we are trying to provide not only the help, not only the socializing help, but also their spiritual need to be satisfied. Because I think this is very important as well. Sometimes we neglect that. Also, we as a church, we are calling International Christian Fellowship Church of Belgrade. We have more than 30 nationalities in my church. And now we see some people getting married. Cubans with Serbians with Iranians. And that's very unique situation for us. So for me, who is a priest there and pastor, I'm learning a lot about different cultures and different cultures in their community, from their background. So we need to educate young people, especially our children. We need to pay more attention, because we will have more migrants, more refugee people. We will have more people who are coming for work. We have a lot of Filipino in our church who married Serbian people. We have a lot of the main Filipino engineer who is repairing Air Serbia planes is in our church. He's from Philippines, like he's in charge of 30 people there in an airport. So for us, Belgrade became more as a global city. And although we are Serbian, although we grew up there, we need to pay attention on different cultures and what different people needs from different countries. So love, dialogue, understanding, helping, listening, practical socializing, practical help. That is what we are trying to teach our members of our churches to do practically on a daily level. Of course, there is a lot of prejudices in our society that other people will come and destroy our national identity, etc., etc. We need to fight against that with the good programs and dialogue and curriculums in schools, but we are not still on that level because we are having other struggles among ourselves. But in the future, we will try to publish. I saw the churches in Northern Ireland and Ireland, how they have a lot of good manuals, how to prepare local churches and Christians to help people who are coming from different cultures and different religions in our city. So generally, we are happy that we have almost 1 million refugees in Serbia from different Croatia, Bosnia, Kosovo, and other countries. So we are trying to teach our kids and other younger generation that helping others in need, it's what others help our ancestors, like my grandmother, my wife, and that we need to be there to help and show practically love that Jesus commands us to do whatever who is coming from where. So we are happy that we have a lot of this. We have one program in downtown that we're helping with Iranian and Russian refugees. We have a Cuban group who's helping Cubans. So whenever people come from different regions, we have groups where we are pointing people where they can receive the help. We have one couple from our church, Dragan and Daniela. They are Roma people who are helping Iranian and Afghanistan and Syrian refugee in Krnjača, and they help such a good help and a blessing for these people there that even our authorities allow them to have a Protestant church in one of the bungalows there, one of the place. So we are going sometimes to visit that. It's different from the city Belgrade, but it's a good opportunities that we can learn as well. When we are going there, we are not only giving, but also we are receiving. So sometimes we are expecting to have organized help from European Union, but we should not just wait to get project and big amount of money from some organized group. We should do what we have. As John Wesley said, do the best with things what you have. So we are trying as a small church of 100+ people to collect sometimes money to help people in need who are coming in our city. Of course, we need to have discernment and we need to have help. We need to be careful because and we cooperate with the Serbian police and authorities. Like, for example, one of my neighbors, she's inspector police. They want to give a lot of citizens to Serbian people, but to Iranian people, but everybody say that they are persecuted Christians, Protestants from Iran, and they suspicious about that. So they approach to us to ask 5 questions, and I give them 5 questions which can help them that they can evaluate who is really persecuted because of the faith and who is coming from another reason. So I think collaboration of the nonprofit organization, religious communities, and government will be very crucial. Government depends on the political option. Sometimes is very stiff. They are afraid of the new cultures. So we are coming in a season that we need to maybe pay attention and do more educational programs about Asian countries and Middle East countries, because most of us, we never had that kind of education to understand that culture better in a way that we can serve them better. So that is from Belgrade and me as a leader of the church. And also we have a lot of students here who are studying as well from different African countries. And we had one time a lot of students from Burundi, because Burundi had the open visa options to come in Serbia. And we're trying to help them, connect them, and give them some practical advice how they can settle down here in Serbia and have a new start of life. So these kind of webinars are very important, and it's very important that
1 minute more. Sorry.
Yeah, well, the theory can also put us into the practice, because sometimes we can know a lot, but sometimes we need to do things on the street. Thank you very much, Djordje, and all of you for your great work.
Well, thank you, Samuilo, for your presentation. It was interesting to hear from the experiences from a local priest. And with your presentation, we are concluding the second part of this webinar, and it is time for Q&As. So to repeat, if anybody of participants have any question, there is a button Q&A down at the panel between share and show captions button. So feel free to ask. In case that button isn't working, you have chat as another option. Well, so far we have no questions, but here are two which we could discuss until some question pops out. First question is, well, Samuil already mentioned the importance of cooperation with local authorities. So question for everybody, how can grassroots interreligious dialogue initiatives be scaled up or connected with policy-making structures? Whoever feels that has something to say can freely say.
Sorry, could you please?
I think this is wonderful question for those who are in the field, like Neira and Samuel, to share with us some experience about that. Neira said something about that, but maybe you can, continue.
Can you repeat one more question, please?
Yeah, sorry. The question is, how can grassroots interreligious dialogue initiatives be scaled up or connected with policy-making structures?
I mean, if I can, I already mentioned, I think in my part when I was talking, that it's like to be able to integrate new neighbors or include them actually in new societies. It's really important that you build this trust with them. And the governments or the states actually cannot build this on first. And that's what I said, when they come to new countries, they go to places, to people or institutions that they have already a bit of trust in, or the communities where they have something in common. And usually religious communities are a place where they go and ask for help. This doesn't mean that they go for humanitarian help. Also, this psychological support is really important. This spiritual part is really important. And that's why I say that it's really important that then the religious communities are connected with NGOs, faith-based organizations, international organizations, and also with the state, in a way that, of course, that the religious communities cannot afford social care, health support, and all these needs that these people have. But they need to be networking with institutions, different ministries that are in charge of and responsible to answer to these needs, to be able to provide this help needed fast as they can. And while this joint work exists and this network exists, and then different institutions can actually influence the policy-making process in a way that they understand better what's happening in the field than the decision makers who are maybe not. Actually, they are not on the field, of course. That's the reason why I mentioned a new example, that we notice a couple of gaps that exist in the field regarding to the law on international and temporary protection in Croatia. And we initiated a couple of change, such as, for example, when you are an asylum seeker in Croatia, previously you didn't have right to access the labor market before being 9 months in Croatia. Then after the 9 months, you will be able to enter the labor market. So this is for people who are asylum seekers. I'm not telling about people who have gained asylum. And we initiated to change that because these 9 months were too long period, and in this period people actually were usually leaving Croatia. So we initiated the change, and then when the new adoption, new amendments happened, they adopted after 3 months people can enter the labor market. And so far that's much better, because then people are not staying in Porin, in this reception center, doing nothing, but they usually feel much more useful. They have more money. They can spend this money on their needs and things like that. And they are being much more involved in the community from the start, starting from their work environment, but also then going to the different events that different actors are organizing, and etc. And also this cooperation is very much needed, because we somehow expect that people in health services, in social services, educational services, they already know how to involve, how to engage, and how to include these people in societies and provide them all what they need. That's not the issue. That's not the reality. Actually, we trained a lot of health workers to be able to provide the assistance and help that is needed to for example, to refugees, because there are specific administrative issues. That's the first thing, but there is also very specific cultural elements, but also the language barriers that need to be where we need to build a bridge between these services and the refugees that need these services. A lot of misunderstandings also happened in schools. So the role of religious communities, but also faith-based organizations, is really important in building these bridges of understanding between, for example, parents and teachers or other school officials in educational area.
Yeah, thank you, Nera, because you mentioned schools and how important this work is has to be done. And for example, as a supervisor for Islamic religious teaching, I am attending all the meetings of the headmasters, and my sense, which I always repeat, please meet these newcomers with appreciation, with respect, because the raised index finger is not the right one to teach them how to behave, because they are newcomers and they need time first to learn about the society, and then they will be integrated in the. And the other thing is this general suspicion. It's very, very dangerous in schools, because with that way we push these children to be extremists. When they are there and they say something, I tell you an example. For example, one headmaster called me and say, "Mabruka, I have an extremist in school." I say, "Okay. How can you deduce that he is an extremist? What he said or what he did at school?" He says, she said he wants to pray at school. I say, come on. And she wants to call the police for that. I say, okay, maybe he has a spiritual need to pray, but he is not still the extremist. And we have to speak with him that maybe it's not the school is not the right place to pray, and to show him how it goes, but not to label him as extremist because he wants to pray. And so this ignorance of many schools, and because they are so full of the society narratives, they try to be so careful because they make so tremendous mistakes towards these children. And my problem is that we push these children to be extremists when they don't need they don't become this appreciation, when they don't feel they belong to the school, then they will say, okay, I am not here, I am not wished here to be, so I go to people who appreciate me. And this is the danger, and that's why we have to work much more in this direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mabruka. If nobody has something to add.
I can add, listen, I think that's very important for the policymakers to come and see the ground root work, grass work. Because sometimes we can come and explain to somebody, but if people don't see with their eyes, they will not understand that. So I think that all of us who are good, to make that bridge between the good paperworks and the policymakers to come and see that, I think it's very important. And also we need to make better marketing in a sense that we can show them a video and other things through the social media, that they can understand the priority of important decisions. Prejudices are all over. Yes, on Friday, my son, we are minority in Serbia. My son is going in Orthodox religious class, and he asked his religious teacher, Orthodox teacher, in the front of 25 children, what do you think about Protestant church? And the teacher said, this is a sect. And everybody was shocked. And he said, I am the fourth generation of Protestant in my family. My father is a priest. Is that okay that I continue to go every Sunday? She was shocked. She didn't believe that she has in her class a Protestant young boy who is. So we need to teach people, educate on every level. On every level, majority religious community have the more responsibility, and we need to build bridges and talk. Because a lot of prejudices is in Balkan area, but every 300 kilometers you go, you're majority or minority. So we need to do to connect and education.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I'd like to add only one or two sentences for. Can I add?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I accepted the Samuel ideas. Education is really so important parameter to understand the different migrant and different religious groups background. But maybe it will be so important to start the migration is the reality, and then all country should first of all accept that migration will be continue, not to stop. And then I think that especially the religious communities have the big responsibility to fight these prejudice against the religious communities. Because the migration is really so difficult experience, not only for migrants, also for the people in the host countries, I think that. And then my idea is, your question is really so broad. It is so difficult to say something, so only 2-3 sentences, but I think that religious communities have the big responsibility to bridge these differences among the different religious communities in all countries in Europe. I think that. Thank you.
Thank you. In case nobody has nothing to add, we got 2 questions in the meantime. One is from our attendee who asks, that attendee, he or she made 2 questions. Actually, I will read both. First is, are there examples of religious communities helping refugees find jobs? And the second is, what are the key conflicts among groups participating in the dialogue? Well, Maruka already mentioned something about that, so I think we should start with the second question. It's, what are the key conflicts among groups participating in the dialogue and how do they overcome it? If somebody has something to.
In dialogue between refugees and migrants.
Among a group participating in dialogue, I guess it's referring to local population migrants, I guess. It's not specified.
Can you specify?
No, not specified. Who are the sides in dialogue?
I think it's very important that the first step Naira has mentioned is that we build a trust, because we are different theologically, everything, and everyone coming the first time has this fear, maybe I will be misuned, and this is the first step, that first we build trust, we come together not to convince the other to take my opinion or my religion or whatever, but to come together to make a change in our society, because there are many challenges and we can manage it together then when each one for him or herself. And this is very important at the beginning. We can't start dialogue without building trust, and this is what we are doing all the time in our network of dialogue. We are making, first we have to make this trust and then we begin. Otherwise, the fear is always there. And we don't know exactly, but this is very important that trust has to be built, and then we can move forward.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, that we need to come to the practical way how we are building a trust, because that's very key. And I will come again, education. One of the things I will tell you, like when I was young man, I was invited to study Summer Peace Building Institute and the Eastern Mennonite University. Mennonites are very good for the between religions. And I was sharing a room with a Coptic believer, with a Catholic bishop, with a Muslim leader, Mufti. At that time, he was a man, and myself. I've never been with that people in my community. So that dialogue, 1 month school, for me, as evangelical Protestant, helped me a lot to broaden my perspective. And I built the trust with these people from different communities. When I came back home, I started to build a trust with the members of their community. So this Muslim leader became a main Grand Mufti in Serbia now. So now we're texting each other, talking. We have a trust. He needs some help. I need some help. So what I told to Aleksandra, Professor Aleksandra Djurić, that we need to do some summer school of dialogue in Balkans here. That we need to encourage European Union, other people to help us in that, to bring young people who will be the future leaders of this community to talk, to know each other, to be educated, and that's the way how the trust is built, practically.
And if I can, Djordje, just add, because I think generally in our work, it's always easy to work with people who already are questioning a lot of things that are happening. It's really easy to get them on our events where we'll tackle different topics. It's always a challenge how to get to the people who are not there, who are not around our work usually. And I think and how to put these people who are really in conflict and feel and think bad about the others in this dialogue session. That's a challenge for all of us in general. But what we do in this situation, it's really important which methodology actually we use. If we say, okay, let's come to the round table, we will practice dialogue sessions, of course that they won't come. It's like we need to be on places, very frequent places that are very much visited, for example, during the weekends. If we are doing event on a weekend, then we need to be in a main park where all people are walking actually. The random people are walking. That's one part. And another part is we should use the power of music, of sport, of art in this to get to these people who can be in conflict, for example, with refugees, who can think bad about refugees. Usually conflicts are like they are taking our jobs, they are taking our social care, they are wasting our public money, they will bring a lot of Muslims in these societies, then this will become a Muslim country and things like that. So we usually use football, for example, in our activities, and in this way we do cooperate with the Croatian Football Federation, because they are very much popular. I guess football is popular everywhere, but in Croatia it's really one, because of we have a very successful football team. So we use sport to connect people, and football is very unique because it also the fans of football can be very racist. And I guess gathering them with new neighbors playing football really makes changes. Because if you have different identities, but you have you play very good on field, they don't care about your nationality, religion, skin color, things like that. You score goals, and that's the only thing that's important. And when you put a dialogue session after these games and connect them with the games, it's really good. It really changed the people opinions in this. And it was also, there was some question related to finding jobs.
Yeah, that was the first question actually, but okay. Yeah.
I can add, for example, because we already started with one program, we called it mentoring program. This is the program where we connect successful businesswomen from local communities, so Croat successful businesswomen with refugee and migrant women from different countries doing the mentorship program. That means that they spend a couple of hours per week with these women, going to their work. They explain them how to prepare successful CV, how to prepare for the job interview and things like that. And they also connect them with their partners who have open job positions. And we started that recently, only a few weeks ago. So we will see what will happen. And we tackled only women because we noticed that employment of refugee women is more challenging than men. I mean, everywhere. It's not only in our society. So hopefully we will have good results.
Well, thank you, Neira. In case somebody else doesn't have to add anything about job or conflicts.
I would just briefly say, I would just like to briefly underline what Mabruka and Neira just said, although I'm not coming from the grassroots organizations, I'm from academia, but I'm as a coordinator of the network, they both belong. I would say that building trust and creating safe space is number one when we engage, but we also need to understand that we need to diverge our approach to those who are not, we say, preaching to the converted. We need to engage with those who think completely differently, completely in opposition of what we expect and what we are used to. And most of the conflicts come from the question of identity. Of course, we spoke about this today. Religious identity, also language can be an obstacle, maybe not a source of conflict, but a source of prejudice as well. So a number of prejudices that are in place, they all come from identity. And dialogue is not a magical tool to solve the conflict. Dialogue cannot eliminate differences, but it can contribute to solving misunderstanding. It can contribute to better understanding the other, and it can really contribute in diminishing the stereotypes and prejudices that we have. It cannot completely eliminate, this is not the purpose of dialogue, to eliminate differences, to make monolithic identities. No, the point is to keep our identities as they are, but to have understanding how these differences are not a source of conflict and misunderstanding, but the opposite. They are a source of better understanding the diversity of the world we belong and we live in. So I think that's partially the answer to the question that we received. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aleksandra. Well, in case there are no further comments, we have one more question, and I think we should conclude after, in case that other question don't appear. And that question is, can any of the contributors comment on how you ensure that voices of vulnerable refugees and asylum seekers who have survived torture are taken into consideration? Well, it's a very ethical question. So if somebody has experience that would like to share or strategy that would like to share.
I can shortly comment. They need to be directly involved in creating programs, projects, activities, policy briefs, whatever you are doing, whatever activity you are implementing, and you want to use as a methodology for solving a challenge that you want to solve or problem that you want to solve. You need to include them directly in a process and give them voice actually to be heard. So I don't know, for example, we had a couple of challenges related to the recognizing the education of people who were coming to Croatia, and then we gathered, but also other problems, for example, and we gathered direct meeting with one minister with refugees who had these concrete, for example, examples. And they didn't only speak on this meeting on behalf of themselves, but they also speak in behalf of the communities that they represented at that moment. For example, cases like this, it's like I could go to that meeting and I could present the problems that they had because I know them very well, but I think it was really important that the minister was connected to these personal stories. And personal story is very much different from the story when someone is talking on behalf of someone. I think the connection can be strongly built only with this personal touch.
Yeah, well, I would just ask another question here. What if they don't want to talk? Because sometimes, like, people who survived torture are very traumatized. They are not open exactly for discussion. So what in that case, if somebody has experience?
I mean, in that case, you speak on their behalf if you have permission to do that, or they can speak their stories with hidden identities. That's also possible. Stories without discovering the names, photos without discovering the faces and things like that. We also use that. And usually the stories on our website that we share, sometimes they are with hidden names because they choose to do it like that. And that's perfectly fine and perfectly understandable, I would say.
Anyone else? No? Okay, in that case, I think because we have no more questions, we can conclude this webinar. It was a pleasure to be your host, and I hope we will meet on some other webinars as well. Thank you to all our speakers, and thanks to all our listeners or participants. And the goal of this webinar was to make a bridge, as it was said in the introduction, between research practice and academic, and I think we managed to do it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
Goodbye.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.